friends, Sinead with VPROC here with some exciting news. Town Meeting Day elections for mayor, city council, and more will be using ranked choice voting, and all Burlington voters get to participate. Unfamiliar with ranked choice voting? Keep watching or visit the link below. Ranked choice voting is a simple way to let voters rank candidates in order of preference. First, second, third, and so on. If your vote can't help your first choice win, it counts to your second choice instead. Here's how it works. If one candidate gets over 50% of everyone's first choice votes, they win and the election is over. However, if no candidate reaches a majority, the candidate with the fewest first choice votes is eliminated, and their supporters' votes will count towards their second choice. This process continues until one candidate reaches over 50% of the vote. Ranked choice voting is an easy way to give voters more voice, more choice, and makes for a stronger democracy. Learn more about ranked choice or try it out for yourself at betterballotvermont.org/BTV2024.
Hello, and welcome to Town Meeting Television's coverage of Town Meeting Day 2024. This program is part of a series of forums we are bringing you in advance of Town Meeting Day on Tuesday, March 5th. Town Meeting Television hosts forums with all candidates and covers the questions you will see on your ballot, introducing you to community decision makers and connecting you with issues that shape your local community. You can find all our forums at cctv.org/2024 or on our Town Meeting TV YouTube channel, where auto-generated captions are also available. My name is Elaine Haney. On tonight's program, we will hear from 4 candidates running for the position of Mayor of Burlington. These candidates are Will Emmons, running as an independent, Chris Hazley, also independent, Emma Mulvaney-Stanek, Progressive, and Joan Shannon, Democrat. We have prepared a list of questions for each of you, and you will have 90 seconds to answer each question. If you're tuning in live, we also welcome your questions at 802-862-3966. If you call in, we will do our best to prioritize your question, though we will screen calls to ensure that questions are not repeated. We ask that you share your name, the town you live in, and that your question be directed at all candidates and not just one candidate. So let's get started with a 1-minute opening statement. Why do you love Burlington, and what will be different for the community if you are elected? We'll start with Will Emmons.
Yes, and you know, some of this kind of drew up on the fly when I got here. If you are from Burlington or you've been here for a long time, I think you remember places like the Ward Street Market, the Beach Side, Ron's Golf, Ethan Allen Lanes, Grand Union, Sha Na Na's, Nepali Dumpling House, Bove's. Those places all closed due to normal attrition, you know, for one reason or another. Recent store closures and business closures downtown include UPS Store, Sox Market, if I'm not mistaken, Full Tank, El Gato, Church Street Tavern, LL Bean, Penny Clues, Majestic Car Rental. These places closed because the situation in Burlington has become so dire that places are flocking to the 7 towns that are booming, that are insulating us. This is a very local issue. A lot of the things that are going on in Burlington, and you know, I think the proof is in the pudding, and I want to make it more like the towns that are around us that are thriving. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris Hazley.
The people, for sure. You know, we're blessed to live in a community where we have a diverse group of people. We have a lot of people that come out and get engaged, that come to the public forums, speak their mind at City Council. We don't always agree, but it's encouraging that people come out, and I'd be a little more concerned if people didn't come out. I think that that's our greatest strength, is our people here in Burlington. And I think what would be different is we need to have a better process to kind of harmonize all of those diverse voices that we hear at public comment. To try to get everybody onto the same page to kind of move us together forward as a city. And if elected mayor, the thing that would be different is we would be looking at a much different process designed to do exactly that.
Thank you. Emma Mulvaney-Stanek.
Thank you. And thank you to Town Meeting TV for this forum. I am State Representative Emma Mulvaney-Stanek. I'm a mom of an 8 and 4-year-old, a longtime Old North End resident, a small business owner, a current state legislator, and a former labor organizer. I'm running because I love this community. I'm running because I'm also very concerned about the unraveling of community in Burlington. There's a divisiveness that's permeating out of City Hall, and it's time that our community reestablishes more healthy practices from our leadership. Our local leaders have not been working together as they should be, and we really need to be collaborating to address the significant challenges facing Burlington. This election, we need to ask what skills and experience we need from our next mayor. I'm uniquely qualified among the field of candidates with both local and state policy-making experience as a former city councilor and state legislator. Burlington's challenges are state and local issues combined, and I'm excited to offer my candidacy and hoping for a healthy, vibrant, and safe community for my kids, your kids, and everyone in our city.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Joan Shannon.
Thank you, Elaine. My name is Joan Shannon, and I have been a city councilor in Burlington for 20 years. I served as city council president for 3 years. I've served under 3 mayoral administrations, and I am also a mom. And I've raised my family here in the Lakeside neighborhood. I'm running for mayor because, like all of you, I do love Burlington. I love the lake, the mountains, but most of all, the community that we have here in Burlington. And I recognize we are at a pivotal point in terms of public safety. I have the demonstrated courage, leadership, record, and experience to address the challenges that we face. I want Burlington to be a place you can raise your family and feel safe. Our city employees have a lot of insight into what our city needs are. I'm very proud to have just received the support of the AFSCME union membership representing over 300 employees across the city. I'm also very proud to have received the endorsement of the police and fire unions. These unions share our concerns for public safety. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. Okay, we already have our first caller, so what I'm going to do is take the call, and you'll each have a minute, 90 seconds to respond. Okay. Hello, caller. Please give us your name and your town.
Hi, my name is Dee. I'm calling from Ward 3 in Burlington.
And what is your question for all the candidates?
My question is, I would like you to speak on the relationship you see between incarceration and housing, and specifically, do you consider incarceration as housing?
Okay, thank you. The relationship between incarceration and housing, and do you consider incarceration to be housing? We will start with Chris and then go around.
No, I do not consider incarceration to be housing. I think that we need to do a better job in that regard, and I'd say that our approach to housing is completely wrong and has failed a lot of people. We wait till people are out on the streets before we offer them help, and then we try to fix a problem that's very costly and it doesn't really lead to good outcomes. If it were up to me, I would take a different approach. I would focus on preventing houselessness because an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. I'd like to take a page from the playbook from Houston and Denver and maybe look at bringing out a universal basic income to help people keep the housing that they have, because keeping the housing that they have is going to be more cost effective and, more importantly, will lead to better outcomes for people.
Okay, thank you. Joan Shannon, please go ahead.
Thank you. I want to be clear that I believe that if you commit a crime, I think that there should be accountability. Accountability can take different forms, but that does not mean that folks can continue to harm others in this community with no consequences. I think we have situations in the city where there are people dealing drugs and creating a violent environment in our housing. And my concern is that if they are evicted from the housing, I don't think that they should be living on the street. I think they should be held accountable for their crime. I think that they should be incarcerated. I also want to be clear that folks that are suffering from substance abuse disorder need treatment and support. We don't have enough support for people that need treatment. We also don't have enough support for people coming out of incarceration. I think supportive housing is essential. It's a real need in our community. And we need state and federal help to provide the housing solutions that is part of what's contributing to our public safety problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Emma Mulvaney-Stanek.
Thank you. I do not think incarceration is housing. I think looking at it such in that way creates harm. because we know with evidence, and I know as a state legislator, when we incarcerate individuals, not only is it an extreme cost to the state of upwards to $80,000 but we know a year, but we know that when people leave incarceration, it's further hard for folks to find employment and housing, and that creates further harm for folks and creates barriers that is hard for people to overcome over their lifetime. We really have to treat our housing emergency and the people who are unhoused in our streets with the dignity that they deserve. People deserve safe places to live, a humane response from their community, and we're simply not meeting that standard here in Vermont. These are Vermonters who are suffering in the streets of Burlington, and this again is not only a local challenge, it's a state challenge that's showing up in the streets of Burlington. I was a leader last May in the state legislature to sound the alarm on the abrupt ending of the motel emergency housing program. I worked with several other Democrats and progressives to put out a number of different policies and solutions to prevent what has ultimately happened here in the streets of Burlington. And while we were able to house several of the most vulnerable households, still hundreds of people were pushed out into the streets. And now we're living with that reality in our streets in Burlington. But again, these folks deserve dignity and respect, and we have lots of different solutions. And as mayor, I would work with regional partners in the towns and the state to come up with solutions that treat these folks as the Vermonters that they are. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have another caller. I'm sorry,
Yes.
Will, you need to go.
Hi, Dee. Thank you for the question. My name is Will, and I was a three-term union representative. I ran for president and was elected for 3 terms. During that time, I stood on behalf of defendants in corrective action. I would write the case in their defense, and I believe that prison is corrective action. I'm also the only candidate in this race that's calling for defunding of vagrant housing initiatives. You see, I believe that we're luring people from across the country to this town. And as a person who got to know a lot of the people on the street after the last election, because I'm the only returning candidate that actually ran against Mayoral and the rest of the guys in the last election, I got to know a lot of them, and I can name on one hand how many of those people are from Burlington, which is something that's alarming. And at $79,000 a bed, I believe that people need to be paying attention to who's paying for this and where is that money going. And when we defunded our police, where did the money go? Public needle use is a major problem right now, and I believe if you're shooting up in front of the high school, then you should be incarcerated for that. Whether the time is extensive, I'm not saying that. Like I said, I spent many years and I did some criminal advocacy work on the streets of Burlington where I hired a gentleman, a lawyer, and wrote his whole case for him. So I do believe in second chances. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we will go back to the phone for another question. Hello, caller. Please tell us your name and where you're from.
Hi, yeah, my name is Brandon and I live here in Burlington.
And Brandon, what is your question for the candidates?
Yeah, so my question is, the state minimum wage right now is $13.67 an hour. Burlington has a livable wage ordinance that applies to city workers or anyone who contracts with the city. That's currently at $17.44 an hour. My question is either of these a livable wage, and if you could elaborate beyond just a simple yes or no?
Okay, thank you for your question. We're going to start with Joan Shannon.
Thank you. There is a calculation that goes, I don't think the minimum wage is a livable wage, and I think the livable wage calculation probably has not caught up with inflation at this point. I do think it's very important to pay a livable wage. I think that the workers of our city are the heartbeat of our city. We are reliant on them to deliver clean water, to maintain our parks and our roads. So I'm strongly supportive of paying a livable wage, and I believe it's calculated annually, and it'll probably be recalculated to more accurately reflect the increased costs of housing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Emma Mulvaney-Stanek.
Thank you. I actually started my career as the director of the Vermont Livable Wage Campaign. So this is a wage standard I'm very familiar with. It's calculated by the state, and the city does its own calculation based on benefits offered by the city. But it's nowhere near what it actually costs to live in the city of Burlington and frankly in the state of Vermont. People deserve to be able to live and work in the city of Burlington, and we're pricing people out. Even in my household, I hold my breath when we open our property tax bill in order to make sure that our household can actually afford to keep up with that cost of living, also with the challenges of childcare, which is really crushing for working families. So we need to do more. We need to know that and treat the city as the model employer it should be, with labor standards to support city workers as well as those who we contract with, to make sure they're paid a livable wage, have a decent and respectable pension and benefits as well, and then have that reflected in the other MOUs and leases that we do with other entities in our community to continue to push wages up where they should have been, to really deal with that other side of affordability in our community. Thank you.
All right. Will Emmons, same question.
Yes. COLA, that's cost of living allowance, that's something that I represented for many years. And, I believe in a livable wage, and through interviews that I've done on a lot of businesses on Church Street and other businesses in Burlington, I have found out that a lot of the workers in this city, waitresses, waiters, things of that nature, are having a problem making money to make ends meet and paying their rent right now because there is no patronism downtown. Because where people used to feel safe at night, they no longer feel safe during the day. And so what is that causing? Well, the last person I said, why don't you stick around until Election Day? Because I'm going to change that if I get elected. But she said she's pretty much moving out this week. And she said, with the daily overdoses that they see outside, they can't sit people outside. It's killing their business. And, that's affecting their wages. So I do believe in livable wages. And, I've always fought for that during the course of my career. I mean, that was my job, wages, hours, and working conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. And Chris Hazley.
Yeah, I think we need to do a better job with that. Little trigger warning here, we're going to have a little math lesson. So traditionally, affordable housing is defined as being no more than 1/3 of your take-home pay. So looking at the federal Housing and Urban Development's fair market rent for this market, we'll go with a one-bedroom apartment for about $1,400. That comes out about $16,000 a year. You do the math on that, that comes out to having to have a $50,000 income after taxes. So that's significantly more than the $15 an hour livable wage that folks are advocating for. So I think we need to definitely move in that direction, but I think there's a huge gap here. And as Mr. Emmons said, you talk to our bartenders, our servers, our cooks, our security personnel, our housekeepers, our retail people, anybody who works, for an hourly wage or for Livable, there is a very huge wealth inequality gap that keeps getting bigger and bigger. And when I moved to the city in the fall of 1999, the vacancy rate was about 0.5%, which is about what it is today. The one-bedroom apartment that cost me $500 over on Buell Street is now costing about 4 times that amount. And the one thing that's changed is the city is now approximately 70% renters. The only thing that our policies have really done, is succeeded in doing, is destroying our stock of single-family homes, which is pushing middle-class families out of the city, and it's also making it unaffordable for younger people. I've heard from a number of people who said, I'd like to live here, but I simply can't. I have to look at Underhill, Jericho, Moncton, Swanton, Fairfax to find something that's in my zone of affordability. So clearly there's a lot of work to be done in that regard.
Thank you. All right, we have another caller. Hello, caller. Please tell us your name and where you're calling from.
My name is Michael Long, and I'm calling from Burlington. I'm a Burlington resident.
And what is your question for the candidates?
My question is, how would you, as mayor, hold large landlords and the University of Vermont accountable for their role in the housing crisis?
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to start answering that question with Emma Mulvaney-Stanek.
Thank you. I think this is a really critical time when our housing market and our housing vacancy rate is so low, as another candidate just mentioned. And large landlords, and frankly even small landlords and institutions in our community, have a vital role to play in making sure that we can make our city affordable again. So with large landlords, I think we need to really look at partnering and understanding the need for stabilizing rents and incentivizing landlords who understand the importance of that, of keeping working people within the city. And so I would explore policies such as incentives for landlords who keep their rents at a moderate rate of increase and stabilize that for the tenants who are trying to stay in the city. In terms of MOUs with large institutions, we have a lot more work we could do there. I'm disappointed that the MOU moved so quickly through for UVM without enough process to understand the vital community benefits that we need to ask when these big agreements are reopened in negotiations. And I think MOU at the UVM has dropped the ball, and the city has dropped the ball in terms of making sure that we are leveraging two sides of the equation related to the housing crisis. When UVM has built more housing over the last 10 years, they've also increased student enrollment, and that exacerbates the problem. It doesn't help the housing pressure here in Burlington. So I think we need to not only look at capping student enrollment at UVM, but also looking at other community benefits, such as reestablishing the child care center they had on campus to help working people in Burlington.
Thank you. Will Emmons, same question.
Yes, and I think I agree somewhat with what Emma just said. With colleges, if they're going to have students, then the students should have housing, at least some sort of options available to them before they come to town, rather than just essentially kind of like an employer hiring an employee and not having a job for them. So I think that makes a lot of sense, and Burlington has focused a lot on housing in the last few years, and if you look at again 7 towns surrounding us, the housing is booming everywhere. There's plenty of places available, but there's always more work to be done. I certainly don't support destroying a place like the Memorial Auditorium to put in housing. However, it's definitely something that I think that any mayor that gets elected is going to have to focus on, and also keeping the cost of rent and home ownership, within reason is fair too. It's lowering taxes is one way to, lower rent. You would try to work with the landlords and maybe make some sort of regulation that if taxes do go down, then the rent goes down with it. But I think renters in Burlington also need to know if the taxes keep going up, the rent's going to keep going up. And as a person who sold his house on Blodgett Street because taxes were so high in this town, I think that it's understandable what people are going through. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris Hazley.
Like Mr. Emmons, I am a longtime renter, and I certainly understand that relationship that higher taxes equal higher rents. That's been true for the 25 years that I've been here, and certainly that's contributing to our affordability crisis. I think the basic supply and demand, it's economics 101. We have demand is outstripping supply, and that demand is being artificially driven by, as others have pointed out, a university that keeps admitting more and more students. And as others have pointed out, every time they build more housing, within 5-6 years, that housing is filled up and more. I also think that the students that come here to go to school ought to be able to live with dignity as well, and putting 3 people in a room that was really designed to hold 2 people, that's not an effective solution either. It's not really fair to anybody. So I think, looking at the supply side and doing that, but I also think we need to look at the, increasing the supply. And I drive through Williston and Winooski and South Burlington, I see all sorts of new construction, but I don't really see a lot going on in Burlington, and I kind of wonder why. And I have some theories on that, but I think we could do a better job here in providing for our housing, for our students, and for our community that's affordable.
Okay, thank you. Joan Shannon.
Thank you. UVM's last MOU with the city, which is a memorandum of understanding, expired in 2019. Since that time, UVM has added 1,000 students to our neighborhoods, and I think that that's really concerning and it should be addressed. UVM now wants a zoning change from the city, and initially wasn't keen on the idea of going into an agreement with the city. I pushed hard on that. I don't think that we should be giving UVM zoning amendments that allow them to increase the number of freshmen and sophomores, and then they'll become junior and seniors and put more pressures on our neighborhoods. Increasing housing at UVM for freshmen and sophomores is the only kind of housing you could build that actually makes our housing problem worse. So I would like to work with UVM, because I do think that UVM is a great asset in our community, and the students are a great asset in our community. And I'm fully supportive of increased density and building more units on campus, and even increased height. But we need to have assurance that as we give UVM that zoning change that they're looking for, that they're going to be drawing students out of the neighborhoods, which is a big part of what is driving up rents in our community. I also think landlords should be held accountable, and I would support tax incentives for landlords to keep their properties low, their rents low. Thank you.
And Emma Mulvaney-Stanek, same question.
I already answered it.
Pardon me.
I already.
Thank you.
Yep. No problem.
Gone all the way around.
I could keep going, but
oh my gosh. Okay, we have another caller. Hello, caller. Please identify yourself and where you're from.
Hi there, my name is Michaela and I'm calling from Ward 3.
And what is your question for the candidates?
I was wondering if the candidates think that we need to recruit more police officers, and if so, what is their plan to do that?
Okay, thank you. We'll start with Will Emmons.
Yes. On my website, which is willforbtv.com, you will find staff 2.5 officers per 1,000 citizens. That is 112 officers total at the moment. And what is that going to do? Well, first and foremost, what we're doing right now is we're using the monies that we have in the city, which essentially always is going to come from the taxpayers some way or other. And we are using that money to fund private security, which is concert security, which would do like a fish concert to police our streets. And officers go through police academy, extensive training. I mean, there's a lot of mental anguish that they have to put up with, and they take the oath to protect, serve, and walk the streets with treating people with dignity and respect. And I feel that one thing with raising the police force to that level, it's actually essentially going to lower taxes, you see, because when businesses return and patronism returns and citizens that are flocking by the thousands return, and maybe by the hundreds, I should say, but when they start returning to Burlington because it's safe again, then I believe that we'll have our city in the fabric of community that we once had. As a person who's been around here since Miss Miller's 4th grade elementary class, I have to say that that Burlington was a place you could run around as a 12-year-old barefoot. I would not let my child run around barefoot in this town at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris Hazley.
I think I would look to implement fully the recommendations put in the CNA report that came out a few years ago, and based on my knowledge of that report, I still think we have some work to do there, and getting our officers up to the articulated cap in that report I think would be the first step, and then at that point we need to see where we would go from there. But again, I think the bigger issue for me is, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, and I think many of the issues that we're experiencing from a public safety perspective are being driven by the housing issue, so we absolutely need to get that under control and make it more affordable for folks here in the city. If people have a place to live, they feel comfortable and they feel safe and secure, they're not going to be acting out on the street. And so that, I think, is one way we can work to make the city safer for everyone.
Thank you. Joan Shannon.
Yes, I do think that we need to increase the number of police officers. The number recommended in the CNA report is 87 officers, and we're nowhere near close to that at this point in time. As someone who has been endorsed by the Police Officers Association, and I'm proud of that endorsement, I think I am in the best position here to recruit police officers to come to Burlington. I think in any job, there's two big things you're looking at. One is, what is the compensation package? And Burlington is offering a very competitive compensation package, which I support. And secondly is, what are the working conditions? Somebody coming to work in Burlington wants to know that we have a community policing model, which is a covenant between the community and the police department. That's a two-way street. There has to be trust both ways, and we have to build that here in Burlington. I think we need to recruit lateral officers, officers who have already been through the training, officers who are experienced. And those officers are going to know whether or not the leadership in the community is going to have their back when they're operating according to their training and their directives. And I will be a mayor that will hold police accountable and at the same time support them when they are doing the jobs, the very difficult jobs that we have asked them to do. Thank you.
Thank you. And Emma Mulvaney-Stanek.
Thank you. Everyone deserves to feel and be safe in Burlington, and we are not meeting that standard right now. Burlington residents also deserve to get help when they call for help, but we need to send the right professional to respond based on that kind of help that's needed. And as a mom with an 8- and 4-year-old, I feel that urgency and anxiety to make sure that we get this right in our city. I'm also going to look at the CNA report because I'm an evidence-based leader. I do that in the state legislature. I did that when I was a city councilor. And I'm going to use that report as a baseline and update it based on what we need in our city. It did not only talk about the number of police, though. It also talked about a few other important pieces, which included social workers. And it also included pointing out culture and policies and practices within the police department. And I'll tell you, as a former labor organizer, it's not just money that attracts and retains people to a workplace. It's also the culture and leadership of that workplace. And I'm talking specifically about the police department, as well as the city leadership and the divisive culture, and behavior that city leaders have been leading in the last several years. So I would also want to make sure that we are using our police strategically, that it's right-sized, so we're stewarding the resources of our city in the smartest ways, and that we're using those police to really do what they are professionally trained to do, which is deterring crime and responding to violence and threat of violence, because that's the best use of those professionals, and then invest in a comprehensive community safety strategy that includes resourcing our social workers, our community safety officers, et cetera. Thank you.
Okay. We have another caller.
Caller number 7 wins a prize, right?
Balloons come down when that happens. Hello, caller. Please tell us your name and where you're calling from.
Yes, my name is Pat. I'm calling from Burlington.
And what is your question for the candidates?
Yes, I'd like to know how they plan to enforce drug laws and stop people from shooting up and using and dealing drugs, especially in City Hall Park, but in downtown.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We will start with Chris Hazley.
Well, as a downtown resident, I'm intimately familiar with the situation downtown, and I could go on about the situation, but I think really I'm more interested in moving forward with solutions. And I think that as far as folks go, the first step to fixing a problem is admitting we have a problem. And I think that when you look and say, well, I don't really like to see people shooting up on the street. Well, there's a reason for that. They have nowhere else to do it. So maybe giving them a place to go would help solve that approach. And in a similar manner, people complain, well, we got all these tent cities cropping up. Well, there's a reason for that too. And maybe if we had a place to go. And the funny thing is we do. It's a little bit up the avenue on North Avenue. It was designed for camping. It's got facilities, and yet it sits vacant 9 months out of the year. This seems like a no-brainer to me. And for a long time, we see the city council, there's a big controversial issue. Instead of tackling it head on, they kick the can down the road, hire an expert, hire a consultant, buy some time, you get some off the hook politically. We have an abundance of expertise here. What we have is a scarcity of common sense. And so I think what I would do is just try to acknowledge the problem and give people a place to go and get them to where they need to be.
Okay, thank you. Joan Shannon.
Thank you. First, I want to say that substance use disorder is a major problem in our city, and I will be a strong advocate for seeking treatment for people that need help. It is an illness, and people aren't getting the help that they need. That is our baseline problem. At the same time, I think that we do need interventions. I support safe injection sites. I think that they can be a pathway to treatment. We also need to make sure that we are collecting the data to assess whether or not they're effective. And effectiveness isn't just the number of lives saved, but also how many people are we actually getting into treatment through this pathway, which is really the goal, for people to be well. But we also need to focus on prevention. I don't think that there's been enough discussion about prevention. This illness is very, very hard to treat. And our best tools are actually preventing people from suffering with the addiction that they have now. But at the end of the day, when people are shooting up and openly dealing drugs in City Hall parks and our community living room, there needs to be accountability. And I do think that the police should be intervening, and that's our community expectation. It's not okay to do it in our living rooms, whether it's our living room at home or our community living room in public spaces. Thank you.
Thank you. Emma Mulvaney-Stanek, same question.
So substance use disorder and the opioid crisis is a statewide crisis. It's not just a Burlington crisis. And we have to recognize that it's a medical disorder and one that should be treated with the same respect of any other medical disorder, where folks deserve humane treatment and understanding around how incredibly hard it is to live with substance use disorder. The toxicity in our drug supply is like nothing we've ever seen in our lifetime, and we have to acknowledge that reality. I proudly supported H72 as a state legislator. It starts overdose prevention centers, 2 pilot programs. One needs to be placed here in Burlington, and as mayor, I would strongly advocate for that because it literally saves lives. And as Commissioner Dr. Levine of the Department of Health said, actually at a community safety forum right here in Burlington, we have to open as many warm doors as possible to get folks not only life-saving treatment, but on their path towards recovery. And whatever it takes, to me, is necessary. As a mom, I want to make sure we have safe communities, but I also want to make sure my neighbors are safe and not left to just have to use openly on the streets, because that's not a healthy community and it is not safe for them. There will also be a quality of life improvement if we're able to care for these folks like the human beings that they are by removing needles on the streets and the trauma that people can experience who are not familiar or have seen folks openly using drugs before. So I think, again, I would really want to emphasize a humane approach and recognizing these Vermonters deserve our care just like any other medical disorder.
Thank you. And Will Emmons.
Yes, and how to answer that, I just want to note the 27% dropout rate at BHS. It's more than 5 times the national average. What are you seeing outside of BHS? There's a threat of a kid stepping on a needle, which I spoke about during the 7 days debates, February 5th, 2021. That's unacceptable. If a person is, and there's an Instagram page, Burlington looks like shh.com. Or no.com. It's interesting. They just posted a picture of a person shooting up about 2 blocks, if I'm not mistaken, from Burlington High School. He had his pants down and he had spike marks all over his leg. That's unacceptable. The police are there to stop things like that from happening. We heard during the last debates that there was kids in school having meltdowns. Sorry for that taking place out there, ladies and gentlemen. I would not let my kid run around on those streets, and I can see why kids are having meltdowns in school. And is that impacting our dropout rate? Yeah, and I think that the drug situation in the city needs to stop. And if a person is shooting up, maybe they need rehabilitation. And if that doesn't work, maybe they need prison time. But in any case, it's unacceptable for that to be happening. We're supposed to be focusing on whether you're a Democrat, Progressive, Republican, Libertarian, whatever. Those parties are supposed to represent working class, and they are supposed to represent elderly, veterans, retirees, and children and students. Thank you.
Okay. We have another caller, so I'm going to take another call. Hello, caller. Please tell us your name and where you're from. Hello? Okay, looks like they're not connected with us. All right. Is that all the callers on the line at the moment? Hello, caller. Please tell us your name and where you're from.
Hello, hi, this is Karen Sita, there is no other. I stay close to Burlington, and I stay involved. Since tomorrow is Black History Month, my question is this. As a mayoral candidate, how will you prioritize safeguarding the rights and dignity of new Americans, individuals with sincerely held religious beliefs, as well as African Americans in the town of Burlington, considering the persistent disrespect they face? How do you plan to address the systemic issues while also protecting those who may encounter hostility for opposing the prevailing ideologies within this new progressive community?
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. We will start with Joan Shannon.
I believe that the mayor really sets the tone, and words from leadership matter. I also want to say that racism and hatred have no place here in Burlington. They will have no place in my office, and I will work as mayor to make that a value for all Burlington residents. My campaign mantra has been all hands on deck, and that means that as mayor, I want to be inclusive in my decision making. I do not have a monopoly on good ideas, and I am certainly not going to be addressing this issue alone. Whatever your race, your religion, your sexual orientation or identity, you are welcome in Burlington and have a valued place here. I think that City Hall should represent the diversity of our city, that we need to have conversations with diverse community groups, and there's a lot more work to be done. We had an incident recently at a city council meeting where there was all kinds of hate in different forms being spewed, and seemingly an organized effort, including really harmful comments about one of the candidates running for mayor. And I oppose that. And I think it's important to speak out against that, which I have. I think that we all need to treat one another with respect and with as much inclusion as we possibly can. Thank you.
Same question, Emma Mulvaney-Stanek.
Thank you. To create a healthy and livable city, we really need to make sure that we're doing things consciously to make sure folks feel that they can belong regardless of their identity, especially racial identity. As mayor, I would utilize the Racial Equity and Inclusion and Belonging Office in much more strategic ways than I've seen it used so far. It's an incredibly important investment within our city. And on the state level, I've seen the Office of Racial Equity used really strategically across state departments and to support even policymakers in understanding where structural barriers and structural racism exist and where we can be doing a better job of understanding inequities for Black, Indigenous, and people of color. And I would love to be able to see the REIB office utilized in such a way, because it is a tremendous asset, especially to a city that does not have as many BIPOC leaders as it certainly should. I would also see counsel and partnership in an intentionally and resourced way with folks who are part of the marginalized communities to help set priorities and to do more than just using folks in a temporary advisory role. That's how we build relationships and trust with folks who have not seen themselves reflected in city government. And that's not only where the best ideas come from, but it's when we talk to impacted folks, we understand how they're interfacing with our city and where harms have been done and where we need to repair that harm to rebuild the trust that this is a city where they can truly belong and live and thrive.
Thank you. Will Emmons.
Yes, and a few months back I sat in on a meeting of the 55th Republican Council of Brooklyn, New York, predominantly Black, and they live in a pretty rough area, and everybody in that area wants something better for their community, regardless of political party. And so what I learned there is about establishing events that are community friendly and accepting of all people. Also, I think it's reflected in the hiring. If you look at the hiring of any city in America, it should be fully diverse, and that goes all the way across the board. And if it's not, then I don't understand why you would have a council to investigate it. I think if it's not, then the public should be looking at it and say, okay, it's not. So we need to fix that, like ASAP. And so, if I get elected, then the hiring will be fully diverse, and I think you'll see it in the pictures that go up on the city website. I think if you look at some of the pictures over the years, you're like, wow, that doesn't really make sense of what we've been saying we reflect all these years. And I think if I'm elected, I'll change that. Thank you.
Chris, I believe we started with you on that question. Is that correct?
Me.
Started with you. Oh, so Chris, what is your response?
Prior to my appointment to the Church Street Marketplace Commission, I had the opportunity to serve as an elected school commissioner from Ward 2 in the Old North End, and it was one of the most diverse wards in the city. And as an IT person by trade, my general approach to the issue was, how can we increase options and opportunities for our kids? And I look around at our governance here. I don't see the diversity in our community reflected in our governing structures here, nor do I see it in our sports teams, at the high school level. And I have had some conversations there about how we can better provide opportunities for kids from the Old North End, students of color, to engage, particularly in the sport of ice hockey, which is something I'm very passionate about. I have spoken to Director Carson about this and was quite surprised to learn that sometimes it's simply because they're never asked. Well, maybe you should play football or basketball or baseball. Well, no, let's give them a chance to try hockey. Let's put an outdoor ice skating rink in Roosevelt Park and, create opportunities for kids in their neighborhood to go out and play, get together, and just basically create opportunities for people that don't have them.
Okay, thank you. We have another caller, and we'll start this one with Emma Mulvaney-Stanek. Hello, caller. Please state your name and where you're from.
Hi, Evan, Burlington.
And what is your question for the candidates?
So housing affordability is top of mind for a lot of the residents of Burlington. What are 4 concrete changes, if you could snap your fingers and implement policy changes, that you would implement to address this housing crisis?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And then Lady Stanek.
Thank you. Well, we only have 90 seconds, so I'll try to do 4. But as I said before, it's really important. I'm concerned about us losing the economic diversity here in Burlington. So first, in terms of renters, I mentioned this before, but I think we have to explore rent stabilization, since a large portion of Burlington folks are renters. We have to leverage those rent stabilization strategies as much as possible. I see just cause eviction, a charter change that I helped lead through the legislative process with Democrats and progressives, as one rent stabilizing practice for folks to stay in housing. A second piece, as a fellow homeowner, or I don't know if you're a homeowner, but as a homeowner, I think we have to look at our local municipal tax structure and perhaps mimic the state income sensitized tax structure for how we fund our education fund system, so that we can make sure that fixed income individuals and working class families have the ability to have their local property tax also be sensitized to income. I think we also have to think about how we build out new building. We're about to build a lot more housing in Vermont, including in Burlington, especially with the upzoning process happening. And we have to think about our inclusionary zoning ordinance and making sure that that is the right formula and updated to meet the current market. The cost of building new housing is astronomical. One unit could be almost $500,000, and I'm not sure our housing trust fund fee or the perpetual affordable units that are currently in that zoning process still make sense today. So I'd want to strengthen that to make sure we have perpetually affordable housing actually being built throughout the entire city. Thank you.
Thank you. Will Emmons, same question.
Yes, and again, what I was saying before is, I owned a house on Blodgett Street, and it was a low-income homeownership program. And I think that was a fantastic program. It's offered through Champlain Housing Trust. Anybody who doesn't know about it should go find out about it. There are some stipulations, but taxes were rough for me, and I think that lowering taxes is something that's important in this city. I think we need to be talking about that at some point in time. But as far as rents go, I would like to see rents be more affordable, especially for a hardworking person who's not maybe making the wages that the person next to them is making. And as I'm walking house to house in the city, I'm seeing the disparity. I see some people living in a nice lap of luxury household, and I see some people that are struggling to make ends meet on a week-to-week basis, month-to-month basis. And I would like to make it more affordable, and have rents be a little bit more accessible for more people. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris Hazley.
I think what we're seeing here is the cumulative result of some 25 to 30 years of failed housing policy. The issue here for me is I think we need to work and focus on prioritizing home ownership, whether that's a single family home or a condo. We hear a lot about bringing people out of poverty. One of the best ways to bring people out of poverty is to build generational wealth. And the best way to do that is through home ownership. And when you look at black and brown communities who've been traditionally marginalized through practices such as redlining, inability to get capital to purchase a home or start a business, one way we can do that is to prioritize the home ownership. And I think that that's really important. As I mentioned before, the percentage of renters has increased from about 50% to about nearly 70% in the past 25 years. We have a huge wealth inequality problem where we have a small number of people, I think it's something like 11% statewide, that actually own property. And the ones that own the property are the ones that are renting it to the rest of us that don't own it. And so I think that that's one thing that we need to deal with there, is to make it more affordable.
Okay, thank you. Joan Shannon.
Thank you. I agree with everything Chris just said about home ownership being key to stabilizing a family's finances. And we do know that racism has prevented black and brown families from owning homes and creating that generational wealth that he's talking about. And we've had policies in Burlington that have prevented housing from becoming condominiums because we have a huge tax it's called a condo conversion tax, so that apartments cannot be converted to condominiums, cannot be sold to the tenants that live there. And I am working on changing that policy so that we can offer home ownership opportunities and hopefully even offer ways to subsidize the families who are living in that rental housing when it converts to condominiums to allow them to buy their home and stabilize their housing cost. Another issue is that the development happening in Burlington is mostly rental housing. There are things that we can do in terms of financing to help create more home ownership opportunities in built housing. Another thing is the UVM MOU. That's going to be key to making sure we have more housing for students and we have more housing available in neighborhoods. And lastly, I also agree that inclusionary zoning is important, and inclusionary zoning can discourage development, so we have to make sure that that's applied appropriately and we get the most that we can. Thank you.
Okay. We have another caller. We'll take a call. Hello, caller. Please state your name and where you're from.
My name is Connor Smith, and I'm from the north end of Burlington.
And what is your question for the candidates, Connor?
My question is, how do the candidates propose to address our infrastructure needs in terms of updating our utilities and continuing to improve our transportation networks for bikers, pedestrians, and drivers?
Okay, thank you for your question. We will start with Will Emmons.
Yes. You know, I think engineering. One of the things I was saying when I was going around getting signatures for to run for office was, you know, while New York City has effectively engineered a way to bring 8.5 million people plus the 2 million visitors fresh water on a daily basis, we are still trying to convince our citizens that it is an impossible feat to clean up the waterfront and do simple maintenance like bringing new sand into the beaches so we don't have to worry about kids stepping on needles and things of that nature. You know, I think that the engineering exists. I think that updating some of our facilities is imperative to make sure that we maintain a clean waterfront. I think that you know, as far as infrastructure goes, not allowing some of our facilities to become old and dilapidated, and some of our vacant buildings need to be restored as well, such as the Memorial Auditorium. But you know, that's not necessarily infrastructure, but I did want to mention it. You know, and then maintaining, you know, the water delivery systems in our city is very important, and I think that you know, as mayor, I'll be focused on making sure that that stuff is, again, I believe in defunding vagrant housing initiatives. I think that we need to focus. I think that a city's job is to provide its citizens with proper infrastructure, with public safety, with the ability to go shopping in peace. And, you know, that's what I'll be focused on as mayor.
Thank you. Chris Hazley.
Yeah, this is a great question. I'm really psyched to have the opportunity to do it. And, you know, rather than come and look at our situation and ask why, I prefer to dream things that never were and ask why not. One of the things I think we could do in terms of infrastructure is we absolutely need to have a conversation about establishing a modern civic center here in Burlington. We're the largest city in Vermont, 45,000 people, and we do not have a usable public space because we didn't maintain the one that we had. We also, in the process, lost our one and only youth center, so that's something we need to do. And in addition to that, what are we missing out on in terms of economic development? How many artists and performers are skipping over Burlington because we simply don't have an appropriate venue for them? But I wouldn't just take it there. I'd say let's put some ice in that thing. Let's bring a minor league hockey team to town, something that'll draw people to downtown, will generate tax revenue, and while we're at it, we'll float a bond and have the city purchase the team. And then once we pay off our proverbial credit card, and then we'll sell shares to the community so that it becomes a community-owned team. Cap it at 5% so that we'll never have, you know, majority owner. We'll never have to worry about it leaving the city. I'd also like to see about putting an outdoor ice skating rink on the waterfront and honoring our heritage as the site of the first ever international ice hockey game, and have an international ice hockey tournament to not only bring people in downtown, but also as a form of cultural exchange. You know, we'll have them bring their mascots for the kids, and we'll have them bring their mayors and city councilors from Sweden and Finland and all across Europe to come over and share how they've addressed these very issues in their community, because I think that there's something that we can learn from our folks over in Europe. So those are the ideas that I have. And as for the transportation, we need to bring back the trolleys.
Okay, thank you.
Took the words out of my mouth.
Joan Shannon.
Wow, that was a lot.
Singer.
Yeah. My answer is so much more mundane, but I think we have a lot of deferred maintenance in our city, and I think this administration has done a good job of trying to get at that deferred maintenance. We've passed many bonds, which is unfortunately one of the reasons our taxes are as high as they are, but it's necessary. Delivering clean water and maintaining our streets and sidewalks are all essential services of the city. I'm also proud to have supported the Great Streets projects, which is a wonderful infrastructure project because it will deal both with our storm water, it will deal with the ravine that historians know goes through kind of under the library and across most of our downtown. We have pipes that are 30 feet underground, desperately in need of replacing, that will be replaced through this project, which is funded through TIF financing, not through our property tax dollars, and that's really important to take advantage of those opportunities. In new developments, I think with the South End Innovation District, the zoning that we have approved, we're really looking for more creative ways other than individual cars for people to get around. We need better bus service, but also car share programs can be really helpful. And making more use of those in new developments will improve our transportation needs. Thanks.
Thank you. And Emma Mulvaney-Stanek.
Thank you. One of the things I love the most about local government is getting into the weeds about infrastructure and how important it is for our city to actually function and have a decent quality of life for folks. Whether that's sidewalks that are actually repaired, whether that's infrastructure for our wastewater, water treatment plants, our public utility for electricity, working for folks. But it takes planning and it takes strategy and understanding what capacity does the city have, both in terms of human power, our city employees, our hardworking city employees, but also within our affordability as a city. For transportation, again, as a mom of two small kids, I want to be able to give up one of our cars, but we need a easy to use public transportation system that's free, that's efficient, and that's easy to use. And we're not there right now. And we need to be able to do creative thinking in order to do public and private partnerships, perhaps, so folks can get to school, get to work, no matter where they live in the city, in efficient and easy ways. I think we also need to do a better job of fiscal planning, because I would disagree. When I served on city council, we had a mile-long capital budget and we never seemed to get ahead. And so I think we have to get out of political cycles of fiscal planning and think with a 10-year view of all the capital needs we need for the city, and then really have more transparent and deeper community engagement methods to make sure you all are able to set the priorities and know why we're spending money on A versus B, so that we don't have our beautiful public assets like Mayoral falling apart from years of deferred maintenance. Thank you.
Thank you. We have time for one last question, so we're going to go to the phone one more time. Hello, caller. Please state your name and where you're from.
Thanks. My name is Annie. I'm in Burlington in Ward 4.
And what is your question for the candidates, Annie?
They're all applying for a full-time paid job as mayor. How has your current paid job prepared you for this role, and why should voters trust you to bring ethical value to the office of mayor based on professional field that you've dedicated your life to so far?
Okay, thank you very much. Great wrap-up question. We'll start with Chris Hazley.
It's my belief that public policy should be based on facts and data, not an ideology or raw emotion. As someone who worked in the IT sector, we tend to base our decisions on data, so that's kind of the way that I would approach the issue. I've run a couple of small businesses. I understand that the challenges faced there. At the end of the day, what we really need is a better process to bring people together, to really come together and address some of the issues that we have here. And right now we have a lot of division in the city. We see that at our council meetings, and if we had a better process, we could do that and do great things together.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Joan Shannon.
Thank you. I've had a lot of different paid jobs, many of them working for different small businesses and owning my own small business, which was a manufacturing business. And most recently, I have been a realtor trying to find housing for a lot of first-time home buyers. And I see firsthand the struggles of people trying to find housing in our community. And it's devastating. I see people coming from outside with more resources than the workers who are providing services here. And this is a real challenge. But I've also served 20 years on the city council, and I know the city's needs, and I've I've weathered the many storms in the city. I have helped during the Burlington Telecom debacle. I helped create a process that the community had faith in and trust, and it took 10 years to resolve that. It took a long time, a long process, and it involved engaging community members and bringing other expertise to the table, because nobody has all of the answers. And it's really about gathering the experts around you that can help you navigate difficult situations. And I think I have a broad base of experience, including direct city experience. Thank you.
Emma Mulvaney-Stanek.
Thank you. I spent most of my professional career as a labor organizer and also as a community organizer. And what that taught me is how to collaborate, how to convene people, how to listen to people truly and deeply, and then move towards action. And that is what we desperately need with how many complex challenges we have in the city. We need to be able to have a mayor who, and I will be that mayor, who will be able to bring stakeholders to the table, folks most impacted, and having meaningful engagement that can, again, bring our community back together, because it really has unraveled over recent years. I'm also a state representative, which pays a small salary. We should pay them more, frankly. And I have to say, I think it makes me uniquely qualified to be the next mayor of Burlington, because again, the challenges facing Burlington are really state level challenges. And we need someone with that state level policy experience, the relationships in the State House, the understanding of the administration, to be able to better and effectively tell Burlington's story in that State House, to leverage the resources and the support and the partnerships, most importantly, to really solve these complex challenges. I also have the experience in working with lots of folks who share different political backgrounds than I do. I serve on House Commerce, which is chaired by a Northeast Kingdom Republican, and we find common ground every day to make sure that we're serving the people of Vermont. And I want to be that next mayor who brings that kind of leadership back to Burlington to make sure that we're working together and finding that common ground to better serve all of you as residents of Burlington, because you deserve that. Thank you.
Thank you. And Will Emmons.
Yes, I sell cars on 2073 Williston Road, and you can pop on down for the FaceTime with the Mayor sales event. I also, spent a lot of time coaching youth sports in the city of Burlington, so a lot of parents know me. I just 3 terms I ran for president of the American Postal Workers Union, AFL-CIO, 1 term state president. I've done a lot of community liaison work. I've also done advocacy work for a patient in UVM and Mass General Harvard Healthcare Centers. That was off the books. I did that out of my own heart. I volunteered 3 years with Burton Chill. I think that was important because I was working with underprivileged kids. I also have filed a lot of cases on behalf of People's Defense for a lady right around the block. I was there when the OIG came through, when the U.S. Postal Inspection Service came through. I represented that person, and also the National Labor Relations Board, Albany and Boston, knew my name on a first name basis because I filed so many cases because we had some issues in the city of Burlington. And what I did through those years with that experience was put myself through a brick wall for my constituents. I think it's time for Burlington to not just vote for the same party, different suit. I really think that you should take a chance and think where we're at as a city. I think it's about time for some new blood in office. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, candidates. And thank you for tuning in to Town Meeting Television's ongoing coverage of local candidates, local budgets, and local ballot issues. You can find this and many more forums at cctv.org/2024 or on our Town Meeting TV YouTube channel. And you can tune in to our live election results show after you cast your ballot on March 5th. Contact your local clerk to find out how to obtain a ballot and to register to vote. In Vermont, you can register to vote on Election Day. Thank you for watching and sharing Town Meeting Television.